Hey guys, what's going on? This is Panzer Dragon, and today we were doing a rundown of the patch 5.5 notes and giving you my insight, what I think is going to happen, doing some theory crafting, yada yada. For the small changes like bug fixes, we'll be skimming them over very quickly or just not going through them at all. So I recommend if you want to check out those little minor things, check out the notes for yourself. Anyways, with all that being said, let's get started. Alright, so first up we do have Azir, and he's getting some buffs this patch. As you can see, the attack range is going to be increased by 50 to 375. Originally it was 400, so that's 25 range less, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. But the base attack speed we're seeing right here isn't getting increased, which means his late game and mid game are going to be more powerful since he can do more auto attacks. And the way base attack speed works is with items, is that it's better if you have a better base attack speed, so that it multiplies better with those 40% attack speed items, and that makes his mid game and late game a bit better. Of course, they reduced his Q base damage in the previous patch, so that did hurt him a bit, but his mid game and late game are definitely better. Alright, so next up we'll be talking about Gragas, and as you can see, 100 increased mana with a damage increase to monsters. That's nothing, and you shouldn't look at this as anything. So let's move on to the next champion. So next up we'll be talking about Kassadin, and right here he's receiving some buffs. The mana cost on his R is reduced by 10. The range is increased by 50, and on every ranks of his R, it's reduced by 1 second of cooldown. So what does this all mean? I think Kassadin is going to be viable this patch. He won't be as strong as he was like 2 patches ago, just because when you look at all this, you have to remember with rock stacking does cost a lot of mana, especially at the last stack. And with this new mana cost, the last stack will be costing around 800 mana. And so, Kassadin, the old Kassadin, he had 700 range or something like that, and he was very mobile around the map. He didn't really have that much mana issues in team fights. So yeah, this is just a less powerful version. I think he's going to be more fun, of course, because 2 seconds, cooldown reduction 40%. You've probably seen the video. You can basically ult every second. It's really fun. You're teleporting everywhere, but of course that's going to cost a lot of mana. But yeah, I think he's going to be viable. Probably not as strong as before, and that's my final opinion. Alright, so next up we're going to talk about Lissandra, and right here she's receiving some nerfs to her Q, which is her, most used skill. So instead of having 75 damage, it's going to be 70, so that's 5 less damage at level 1, and it's going to be 30 damage per level instead of 35, so that's decently big, but she still does have her AP ratio, so as long as you get AP, you're good. And right here for competitive play, she's still probably going to be good because she's consistent. She has her ult to lock down people, has a lot of CC, can zone people, blah blah blah. So for competitive, still good. For solo queue, I probably think she is in the mid and top lane. Some people use her more in the mid lane now, but as a top laner, in my last top lane tier list, she was number 5. I think Rumble or Kennen is probably better than her as of now, so that's what I'm going to do. And yeah, let's move on to the next champion. Alright, so next up we're going to talk about Nautilus, and right here he's getting some minor nerfs to his W, but a huge buff to his E, and I'm going to be explaining why. So first off, what you're going to be looking at with W is you're going to leave it at level 1 until you get 5 points of the E right now, because how powerful this is right now, and of course the nerfs coming to this. So you're looking at 30 damage and 9% maximum health at level 1 instead of 40 and 7%. Now cooldown reduction, instead of having it at 10 seconds at all rank, you're going to be looking at 5 seconds for team fights in mid game and late game. Mana cost does get decreased, slow duration is decreased too, and AP ratio. But 5 seconds in a team fight, having 40% CDR, that's a 3-second cooldown on your E. And the base damage on his E is actually pretty strong. So as you can see right here, magic damage per wave is 60 damage and then 100, and well, actually we're looking at this damage right here. So having this every 3 seconds, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, especially if you hit more waves onto enemies. That's 440. So in my opinion, he's going to be extremely strong in the mid game and late game. He might be the new OP. I'm not sure, but that's my theory crafting, and we'll have to see what's going to happen when he's live. So next we're going to be talking about Nidalee, and right here her W is getting a small nerf. As you can see, instead of having current percent health damage, it's going to be just flat out Flat damage and AP ratio is going to be 0.2, which is pretty bad, so don't count on the AP ratio making up for that damage lost. And the only numbers you'll be looking at for the majority of the early game and mid game is this 40 and 10 and 10% health, because you never put points into it until the late game. Even then, it was still just a trap. It didn't do that much damage. But so right now this ability is just used for utility, and it does kind of hurt her early game clears. But the thing is, people were actually getting QE and then W, and then they bushwhack the walls or big golem, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. She's still going to be a strong jungler. It does hurt her clears just a little, but that's about it. In the end, she maxes out her Q anyway, so her clears are still good. And at level 6, her clears get phenomenal. So she's still probably going to be a good jungler. Alright, so next up we're going to talk about Shyvana, and right here comes a minor buff to her E. As you can see, it does more damage, 2.5% instead of 2% for each auto attack. That's procced on a marked target, so that's pretty good. I actually think she's more of a jungler in this season because of the changes to her W, doing 20% more increased damage to monsters. So that's what I'm thinking. Maybe she might be a better top laner against certain matchups like tanks because they have a lot of health, so that's also a possibility. And I'm gonna try, because of this buff, it kind of reminded me, she is a jungler. I'm going to actually try her in solo queue, see how she is. I've actually seen some Shyvanas in solo queue rarely. They've actually done good, going to Valor. I think they went Blade of Ruined King right after. They're fairly tanky, so I'm going to check it out. And again, the combo with Blade of Ruined King and maximum % health damage seems interesting, so we'll see. Alright, so right here, Sion is getting a nerf to his E and a buff to his Q. So what does this mean? Well, for starters, top lane Sion is getting a nerf. You have to be more conservative about your mana, make sure those E's hit, and not spam your spells as much. For the Q change, that means jungle Sion actually gets a buff, and of course level 1, since it's 1.95 instead of 1.8, it does more damage when you charge it up, but of course you don't usually charge it all the way up unless the enemy is actually totally stunned. So yeah, jungle Sion, as you can see, 45 mana at all ranks. This is what you usually max out when you are jungle. You don't really max out E. Instead, this is better for laning as it's a really good poke tool. So you'll probably still see him in the top lane since it's a minor nerf, but you might see more jungle Sion. Alright, so right here, Skarner is getting a teensy weensy buff to his Q. Plus 4 damage in total at all ranks of his Q. Really minor. And then right here, it's just a late game buff. Instead of having 20 damage per level, it's 35. So that's whatever, but this only happens at level 14, 15, 17, 18, since it's the last skill you level up. So yeah, he's still probably going to be crappy, but whatever. Maybe the new jungle item will make him better. Alright, Sona is getting a minor buff. As you can see, 100 mana at all ranks instead of 200, whatever. Probably still not going to be top 5. And next up is going to be Tristana. So Tristana's Q is getting a small buff. As you can see, when you auto attack a target who has explosive charge, you do reduce the cooldown of your Q by 1 second. So that's up to 4 or 5. I'm not really sure, I don't play her. But you have to remember her Q is on a cooldown of 20 seconds. So that's a maximum of reduced to 15 or 16 or whatever. So it's just a small buff. Nothing major. I still think she's not going to be top 5 solo Q worthy. Alright, so next up we'll be talking about Trundle, and right here Trundle is getting a pretty decent buff. The reason he actually fell off in the top lane, I think, is because of all these AP champions coming to the top lane. He was more better against tanks and melee ADs, and so since AP champions were coming into the game like Lissandra, Rumble, all these champions, there was no point to pick them. That's my theory, but right here it seems like he's going to be a pretty good counter to Sion. Because of his R and stuff, but what I'm thinking is his level 6 is definitely increased since you're getting 20%. W is the last thing you max out, so you'll be getting that 20% healing amplification. The range, I think this is better for, I don't know, 1v2s. That's the only way I can really see it being useful, since in competitive they're usually hiding at their tower, waiting for the CS to coming at them. And yeah, of course this helps too. Only 4% more, but still helps. So you might see him back. His jungling, it does get buffed a bit because, And I do have to talk about Jungle Trundle. Since the healing amplification is increased by 12%, which isn't really that much, your health machete, your hunter's machete, and killing monsters will increase the amount of health you gain back. So that's pretty cool too. But I think he'll be more of a top laner. I think. Alright, so next up is going to be Urgot, and right here we see an interesting buff to his W. So instead of nothing at all, it's going to be 8% of his total mana granted to add to that shield, but his base shield does get nerfed a bit. And what does this mean? Let's just say you have Manamune and Frozen Heart. So let's get the calculator and we go I don't know, 2000, because we have base mana too. It's probably higher, but this is pretty good for just doing simple math. So that's an increase of 160 shield to 220, so you're getting 100 shield more, let's just say. I don't think it's enough to cut it. The reason he was so good in, say, Season 2 is because of the armor and magic resist, how it worked back then and now. I don't know how to explain it this part, but basically penetration, percent penetration came before flat armor penetration, so that's how it worked. And also the range on his R was super good, so you could just swap whenever you wanted. I guess this is a buff to some people who played top Urgot, or maybe mid. I think he's more of a top, but yeah, I don't think this cuts it. I don't think he'll be good because of this buff. Alright, so next up is going to be Varus, and his Q, the cooldown is going to start when he casts it instead of at the end when he fires the arrow. So that's basically going to be a 2-second cooldown less on his Q, which is good, but I don't think he's going to be, top 5. He's actually a decent AD carry right now, but that's about it. He's like pretty unpopular. I haven't seen him a lot, but I do see him sometimes, so it helps. Alright, so next up is going to be Veigar, and right here he's getting some buffs. Q, missile speed faster, woohoo, and delay is now 0.5 seconds instead of 0.75. Honestly, the change they made was a huge nerf. This doesn't do anything. AP ratios went down, and he still sucks. Alright, so next up is going to be Vi, and as you can see, there's going to be some slight nerfs to her. It's just 50 less damage at level 6, and then 25 less damage at level 11. And then finally, it adds back up to normal. Her movement speed though does get hit, so whenever a movement speed does get hit, their win rate usually goes down, and so it potentially makes her less of a jungler. So she's right now my number 2 for top strongest junglers, but she might go to number 3 or 4. And I mean, 150 damage less on ultimate is pretty big, but I think she can still lock down people and kill people. So yeah, she's still probably going to be good. Nothing big nerfs were coming, so that's good. Actually, you might want to withdraw what I just said about, Vi being number 2, because I think tank junglers are coming back in this game with that new item and some buffs coming to some of these tanks. But I'm not talking about Volibear, I'm talking about in general. But we will be talking about Volibear right now. So right here, refunds half of the cooldown if you use on a monster. So that's pretty good when clearing jungle camps. So instead of 18 seconds, it's now 9 seconds. You can spam it more. This is what you max out now. It's awesome. So I'm going to try him out in this patch. Pretty sure his clears are going to be much faster. We'll have to see. Also, not Devour. I think I'm going to go that new item. Alright, so next up is going to be Xin Zhao, and again, his W is getting a buff, and his E also gets a buff too. 40 damage per level instead of 35, which was like, I think this was like in Season 3 or 2 when it was super strong, but I think there's better junglers right now. So this is a small buff, I don't think it'll do that much, and right here, again, another small buff. You're looking at 2 numbers right here, is 26 versus 30 since you leave it at level 1. And that's just 4 more hit point to sustain. So there's so much more stronger junglers. I don't think he is going to be top 5, but for lower ELOs, I know he's pretty popular there, so that's pretty good for them. Alright, so next up is going to be Zac, and the 0.5 second knockback duration is increased to 1 second on his E, which does help a lot for ganks and locking people down, and of course team fights and setting those team fights up. So I honestly have a lot of hope with this guy, and usually when they buff him I always think he's going to be good, but he's usually crap, or still crap. But there's that new item coming up, so I'm just freaking out. I don't actually know who will be the best junglers. He might be good with that new item, but we'll have to see. And I guess I'll explain this change. So basically what's happening is if you cast W right after you say you picked up a chunk, there'll be a little time slot where it will proc and reduce the cooldown by your W by 1 second. So that's what this is saying. Alright, so like in the last patch rundown, I said Zilean was going to be OP. He's actually pretty shitty because I totally forgot one thing, was his Q was really inconsistent. Like, it was really hard to land in lane, so that's the only reason why. If they left it, you know, single target, or just point and click, that'd be fine for the stun, but obviously he's pretty inconsistent with that time bomb, so he sucks right now. This doesn't do much. Alright, so next up we're going to be talking about Luden's Echo, the new item, which is going to kind of be a replacement for DFG. So right here we're getting 120 AP, 7% movement speed, and a static shiv without the critical proc, instead of auto attacking, it's going to be casting spells, all for 3,100 gold. Sounds pretty good, but in my perspective, I don't think it's that great. I think it's really hard to put in anyone's item build. For instance, if you are Twisted Fate, you'd rather much get Lichbane for the burst, and yeah, just for the burst, this one, the AP ratio is 0.15, so it's not that great. It's generally going to be used for more bursty long range casters like Lux, Xerath, Ziggs, but for Lux and Xerath, I think they'd much rather get Lichbane unless they're too scared to get in auto attack range. Then yeah, I could only see it being good on someone like Xerath. People like Akali, I don't think so, because again, the base damage is pretty low. I think I'd rather much get Lichbane. Karthus is interesting because I think you can get a like three rotations of it, because he can. I heard each spellcast is charged up by 20, so his Q is gonna be good. I think it'd be good on Karthus, but you could probably proc it when he's dead too, so that's pretty interesting. And yeah, I think Karthus, Xerath as a 6 item. I think it's going to be super good on Karthus though. Maybe. We'll see. Alright, so next up we'll be talking about the Sweeping nerf. As you can see, 15-second increase on the cooldown. I'm not sure if this applies to the Oracles, you know, the 3rd upgrade, or the one that costs 250G. So it could be still at 60 seconds. If so, it might be a wise thing to buy it very quickly. But right now, this just helps enemies to get more wards into your jungle, and it's harder for you to clear it since you don't have that cooldown. So that's about it. Alright, so next up we're going to be talking about some jungle items, and these are mind-blowing. These are going to be meta-changing, super interesting. I'm not sure what's going to happen to the jungle in the next patch and what junglers are going to be played the most. I'm predicting it's going to be Sejuani, of course, and Nautilus, but let's go over this item. So right here, 1,000 gold, that's the same as a Giant's Belt. You're getting 300 health. Giant's Belt does get 380, and you do get a mini Sunfire, so that's pretty good, especially if you're jungling. What I predict, of course, is you won't be getting this item for a while. It does cost 1,000 gold, and you need your 2nd tier jungle item. This will do, so I'm predicting you get it at level 7. This will do 5 plus 7, that's 12 damage times 1.5, which is 18. And you're going to be doing 18 damage per second to minions or creeps around you. How much does the 2nd tier jungle item do? It does 22 damage per second to whatever is attacking them. It does say 45 damage over 2 seconds, so that does equal to 22. So you're basically getting, you know, another jungle item, machete, whatever, which is pretty good, and it helps your clears. So definitely you're gonna see a lot of this on those tank junglers. So next up we'll be talking about the Cinderhulk enchantment, and right here it's going to be replacing the Juggernaut. What I've been reading is you cannot stack the passive of Sunfire Cape and this and Bami's Cinder, so don't get any ideas of taking top smite just to buy this item and combining it later in the game. So what are we looking at right here? So we're looking at 350 health, and Juggernaut had 500 health. We also get a new passive, 25% bonus health, so that means 350 health, 250 times this is how much health you're going to be getting when you buy this item, so that's pretty good. 70 health less, whatever. You do lose the tenacity passive, so that kind of sucks, but you do get this nice new passive right here, which is basically a Sunfire Cape, and doing the math, it actually becomes more powerful than the Sunfire Cape later in the game. 1.5 times 18 plus 24 is 51 damage at level 18. So all of these tank junglers are going to be getting Sunfire Cape for free, which is incredible. So I don't know about you, but since Sejuani and Nautilus are going to be super OP in this patch, you're probably going to see them more often than, what are the champions played? Vi, Rek'Sai, Pantheon, I'm totally forgetting what else. Nidalee. Nidalee is one too. It's just, I think it's going to be the league of tanks in the jungle with this new item. Holy crap. Plus people are building Warmogs too, and all these health items. So you're going to be using this passive a lot, and yeah man, it's going to be a totally different jungler's next patch for sure. Alright, so the build order of Sunfire Cape does get changed, so you'll have 80 less health, but you have a mini Sunfire Cape, and that's about it. Next up, we'll be talking about Reaper Cloak. I don't think anyone uses this. I don't think people will use it. Even though the ZZ Rot Portal does get a buff. Well, it's really hard to say that this is a good item, to be honest. No one really gets it. They only get it to troll, and that's about it. And also the passive Point Runner gained the movement speed buff against fallen turrets is there now, so that's cool. But honestly, I'm not a big fan of all these weird items. They're good for, you know, normals doing stupid stuff, but in ranked, I don't think they're that great. Righteous Glory does get a buff, and honestly, I think this buff was needed because this item doesn't really give any tanky stats. Well, I mean the health, but it doesn't give me armor or magic resist, unlike Randuin's or Spirit Visage, Banshees. This just gives health and mana and a unique active, which is pretty good, but you know, I think this is what it needed for sure, because it was pretty underpowered. Alright, so snowballing teams are getting a nerf because right here, inhibitor turrets and nexus turrets are getting their gold and experience decreased to 50 and 0. So this is a really good good change, because literally if you get those inhibitor turrets off and the enemy gets them away, it's so easy to get the inhibitor. It's so easy for the enemy to dominate the game. It's really hard to come back at that point since they probably got the inhibitor. So instead of giving that global gold, it's finally 50 and no more experience, so that's so good. You can probably do better, easier comebacks now. And I guess that's why it was better to emphasize inhibitor turrets over the Baron, because they did give a lot of gold and of course experience. So next up we'll be talking about the shield turrets, and you have to look at the description carefully. It says right here, mid lane inner turrets no longer shield nearby champions, but top and bottom still do. But the top and bottom lane turret shield health goes to 30 instead of 200. That means the middle lane probably still has 200 shield health. But all of the inner turrets do get increased to 300 health. I think that's what they're trying to say. Yeah, so basically what I'm seeing is it's easier for one team to siege on people who are defending the middle inner turret, but for top and bottom it's going to be relatively the same. And since you can dive onto the enemy and poke them out or whatever in the mid lane, that's basically it. Alright, so next up is going to be minion health, and it's actually pretty confusing what they're trying to say in these patch notes, but if you just read right here, it's basically minions get healthier, but the turrets still do the same damage to them, and they upgrade at 9 minutes instead of 10:30. So I think it's going to be either harder to one-shot them or something, I'm not sure, but I mean it's only like 3 health, 6 health, 9 health, and an additional 9 health every 90 seconds after or whatever. So I think you can still wave clear with champions like Ahri. I know Lux can't wave clear, she has to auto attack each of the back minions once to get rid of them. And that's about it. So next up we'll be talking about the jungle camps. Oh, finally, raptors do less damage. Yes, that means you can go golems red to wraiths instead of going to golems red, sometimes wolves, and then doing blue buff. So you can finally go raptors right after red buff, I think. And Gromp gets a nerf, so that means, hey, bottom lane start doing Gromp again, I think. Also, wolves do give more gold. That's good too. So next up we'll be talking about the Gromp buffs, and honestly, I was doing some math, and I think this is actually a nerf to every jungler, even the tank junglers. Why? Okay, so basically, at level 4, what would be happening is you'd have 8 times 4, which is 32 damage, plus 4 of course, and right here, it says 10% of bonus health, not maximum health, so basically, I don't know, let's say you recall, get a ruby crystal, and you have the jungle item or whatever. So you only have 150 bonus health. Then you do this, then you do plus 10. Whoa, that's only 25 compared to 36 damage. So I'm pretty sure they actually looked at this wrong, or I'm doing some kind of math wrong, but it's looking not so hot in the early game. It looks like more of a late game, mid game buff to tanks who buy a lot of health. But even then, I was doing some math, and let's say you're level 18 plus 4, you know, that's 148 damage. Let's say you had a bonus of 1500 health. Okay, so yeah, like 16 more damage, whatever. I actually totally forgot what my damage was. Yeah, so it's like 16 more damage. It's not that great. Can't say I'm enthusiast for this buff. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed my insight. Hope you guys enjoyed my theory crafting. Hopefully this was helpful. Blah blah blah. I probably should stop saying hopefully a lot. Be sure to look out for Volibear, Sejuani, and Nautilus this patch. I feel like they're going to be super strong. And of course the jungle tier list, be sure to look out for that next video and the next patch notes that I'll do. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.
Prince Royce, Big Snoop Dogg. What? She got me stuck on the feeling. She got me stuck on the feeling.